And ESPN 1080.com's special FSU podcast here as we preview Florida State and Oklahoma. I'm Eric Lopez, and I am joined, honored by a man who works for Lindy's.com. You can hear him on Tuck and O'Neill every Tuesdays in the 4 o'clock hour, and he will be covering this FSU-Oklahoma game. None other than Brent Beaird, my good friend, who I haven't seen since the Cap One Bowl. Brent, how's it going?
Eric, I'm doing well, my friend. Good to be with you, and yes, it is. It is as big of a game in Tallahassee as they have had in certainly in recent memory, is it not?
Absolutely. I mean, I've looked it up. For a non-Florida team, this is like obviously the highest-ranked team they're going to play outside of the state of Florida. You got to go back to like maybe the Dan Marino days of the Pittsburgh in 1982, 1983 that came to Tallahassee. That was not a Florida or Miami that's ranked number one or this high.
Well, it's an incredible opportunity for not only FSU, but Eric, also for the league. And I would go even beyond the Florida State game. You've got Miami and Ohio State, and you've got, on a lesser scale, Maryland and West Virginia. It is an opportunity for this league to make a statement that they have not made on a weekend in quite some time.
It's put up or shut up time for the ACC. You're right. They've been kind of maligned, and then they've kind of had some, said some things. This is a week where they can really stand out. Well, you're right. With Florida State as kind of the front runner, but you're right. Some interesting other matchups. How much pressure? Who's got the most pressure in this game? Oklahoma or FSU, in your opinion, as far as what's at stake here?
I would say probably Oklahoma. I mean, Oklahoma has the top ranking. They have got. I think people would look at the more experienced team. I think people are still looking at FSU maybe in that second year under Mark Stoops. Will they get better than they were last year? Is it coming around for a national title run maybe next year or certainly the year after that? And they continue to recruit very, very well. So, Eric, I would say right now it would have to be the Sooners simply because everybody has put that virtually that number one tag on them in the preseason magazines, the websites, and certainly the polls.
Oh, no question about it. Of course, these two programs played last year up in Norman. Oklahoma destroyed Florida State. Of course, FSU was just early in the Jimbo Fisher era. Landry Jones went wild. They beat a Christian Ponder-led Seminoles. Does that game play any role into this Saturday's game?
I think as far as just motivation, as much as anything else, yes. Now, obviously, you've got two teams that are probably very different than what we had last year. But, Eric, make no mistake, especially defensively, Florida State has absolutely been looking at the film from last year. That's been tremendous motivation for them in the locker room. But at the same time, how long does that last? I mean, does that last a few plays? But when it actually gets on the field and they actually get together, but no question. I think it's been something they've looked forward to for quite a while, and they know by winning a game like this, people are going to be looking at them and saying, they may be back a year before we thought they might be.
Absolutely, and they could send that statement in front of a big national audience this Saturday night. FSU, of course, has blown out Louisiana Monroe and Charleston Southern like they expected. Have we learned anything, though, about Florida State in these first two games against these inferior opponents?
I think we've learned that E.J. Manuel has the potential to be a very good quarterback in his own right now. I think what we don't know is, and the thing that people are looking at would be what kind of a running game do they have? Eric, I think that's the thing that folks are a little bit concerned about. I mean, frankly, they're not running the ball the way that they probably should. And they did okay, 4.6 yards per carry, 170 yards. But I mean, at the same time, you would think that they would be running the ball better. And I mean, they had James Wilder Jr., who had a 40-yard plus run that led them in rushing. But, I mean, you've got Jermaine Thomas had 23 yards. Chris Thompson had 21 yards. Devontae Freeman, who is one of the youngsters they really, really like, he had 15. But at the same time, is it an average group of running backs? We don't quite know that yet. What's going on with this offensive line? I think they took care of business. Eric, there were none of this Jacksonville State or Troy type stuff.
Yeah.
Remember when they were behind in the third quarter? But I mean, they did what they needed to do. But yet, there's still a lot to prove for this team.
Now, Oklahoma hasn't played in 2 weeks. They opened up against Tulsa, blew out Tulsa at home, had a bye week. Your thoughts on that? Oklahoma having a bye week before the FSU game, so they got to sit back and watch FSU tape. Your thoughts on the Sooners? Obviously, Landry Jones, Ryan Broyles, a tremendous team. Your thoughts on the Sooners as they head into Tallahassee?
Well, I think they'll live up to the hype. I don't have any doubt about that. I mean, Jones has been terrific. I mean, it seems like he's been there forever now as a junior. Ryan Broyles, who is a senior, you need that kind of leadership. We'll be very interested to see how well they can run the ball with this group. Brennan Clay, Dominic Whaley, Roy Finch. I think one of your key matchups is going to be obviously along the line of scrimmage. And frankly, a Oklahoma offensive line, I mean, they've got some seniors like Donald Stevenson, but they've also got some really young kids at this tackle position with guys like Darrell Williams and Tyrus Thompson, who are basically redshirt freshmen. But again, this is a pretty good FSU offense. What is the Sooner defense going to be able to do against them? And some thought that if Travis Lewis, their linebacker who's led them in tackles over the last several years, if he could play, and it's one of those things, Eric, where he's working out, rehabbing well, he's excited, wants to play, but probably cooler heads will prevail and not let him play until he is absolutely ready to go. That's going to be your key matchup. But I think more than anything else, the Sooner defensive line, which is a junior-senior laden group with Walker, McFarland, Lewis, Alexander, for instance, how will they do against FSU's offensive line in a group that when they are together and they're healthy, I think they're really very good, but we just haven't seen them come anywhere near probably their potential so far.
We're speaking with Brent Beaird of Lindy's.com and, of course, contributor to Tuck and O'Neill. You can hear him every Tuesday here on ESPN 1080 on Tuck and O'Neill in the 4 o'clock hours. They break down the happenings of college football. But you mentioned one of the keys to the game. Give me a couple other keys in this game. What does FSU have to do to pull off a big win here? What are a couple keys? I
think that's a great point. One is the special teams. I think when you've got a situation where they've got a chance with a guy like Greg Reed. Eric, could you see him making a couple of big plays in this game and really being the difference? Obviously suspended last week.
Yep.
He is back. I mean, obviously we know what he can do in the secondary. I think that's going to be one of the great things for them is going to be could he come in and make a difference? And I think another key is, what about some of these freshmen? Now, obviously, you can't depend on freshmen totally in a game like this, but we mentioned Devontae Freeman a minute ago. Timmy Jernigan, Eric, is from Lake City. This is a kid that we followed for years. He's an absolute beast, near 300 pounds, but there are times he runs like a running back. And then you've got Nick O'Leary at tight end. I think special teams, the freshmen stepping up, and again, the FSU offensive line, I think that's three areas. If FSU could win a couple of those areas, that'd go a long way in them being able to win a game like this.
You mentioned Greg Ray. They asked him, does he expect Landry Jones to challenge him? And he's like, I hope they do. So he's definitely confident. He's looking forward to it. Do you think they'll match him up with Ryan Broyles all game? Do you think they'll mix it up? What do you think they'll play there?
I think they'll probably mix it up. And listen, I know that sounds a little cocky, but I think you got to like a little bit of that. Absolutely, get him out there. and allow him to challenge that OU secondary. Now I think what you'll see, Eric, if you remember that game last year, Oklahoma really took advantage of FSU on the perimeter. I mean, they had a lot of these little slip screens, and they were able to get into the hands of their receivers, and they just broke in on that secondary. They had 32 completions, nearly 400 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, losing by 30 points. I think at the point of attack with this secondary, they need to hit these receivers in the mouth and make some difference early on. They made this move with LaMarcus Joyner and moving him in positions in the secondary. I think that's significant. That secondary, they need to make their presence known very early.
Of course, we're speaking with Brent Beaird. This is an incredible day in the state of Florida. I mean, you got UCF and FIU. Of course, a game here in Orlando we're interested in down in Miami. FIU coming off the big win against Louisville. Miami and Ohio State playing on the same time as FSU and Oklahoma. You got Florida and Tennessee. I mean, this is one of the best days I can remember in the Sunshine State in a while. I mean, it used to be like this all the time in the 90s, it seems. But just talk about this day in general in this state.
Tremendous day, no question about it. And I'm glad you mentioned FIU. T.Y. Hilton is a name that folks need to know. I mean, Hilton made 7 catches, 201 yards in that upset of Louisville. What a great performance that they had. I think Central Florida just absolutely took Boston College to the woodshed and took away their manhood in that game, Eric.
Yeah, they did.
It was just absolutely unbelievable. And again, Florida, Tennessee starting CBS. I mean, you've got that game at 3:30, and then you've got Miami, Ohio State. The interesting thing to me, and I question this a little bit, Eric, is Ja'Cory Harris starting for Miami. I guess I understand that, but at the same time, Stephen Morris up into the pick six against Maryland. Eric, I thought he played okay. I thought he played pretty well.
I think Al Golden, this clearly tells you that Ja'Cory Harris was Al Golden's guy in practice, and I think if it wasn't for the suspensions, he would have been the starter against the Maryland game.
Well, and again, and you're right on with the suspensions. Marcus Forson is back. Travis Benjamin is back. Sean Spence, a linebacker, is back. All these guys back for Miami against Ohio State, which I think is going to be key. And again, for Ohio State, how is Joe Bauserman going to play? I think he's done okay so far. And then you've got a potentially huge game, obviously. The Vols come in, and they are red hot, especially on offense. Tyler Bray over 400 yards in the win over Cincinnati. They have got a couple of must-see receivers in Rick Rogers, for one, and Justin Hunter, who, before he leaves Tennessee, Eric, is going to be a Heisman candidate. I mean, the kid's 6'4", 6'5". He can jump to the moon. Just an extremely good player. But Tennessee is still a year away. They're improving. They've got a situation on defense where they're starting a couple of freshmen at linebacker. Don't think that's going to bowl well, Eric, in Gainesville. I'll just be honest with you about that. But I think this is a more mature Gator team. They've got better chemistry. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to win the SEC title this year. But look, after seeing Georgia lose, after seeing what we've seen from South Carolina getting off to slow starts, this game may have more to do with the SEC East than we thought it was going to.
Absolutely. No, you're right. It's wide open. It's a pretty interesting game. Last question before I let you go, of course, FSU and Oklahoma. I cannot let you go. Of course, you will be there. You'll be hanging out with my good friend Brandon Miller, who covers the Seminoles there for Seminoles.com. Give me your prediction now. FSU and Oklahoma, you'll be there. Your thoughts on the game. Who wins?
I think that it's much closer than last year, and I think FSU is very capable of being able to pull an upset in this game, if you can call number 5 against number 1 an upset, but I still think you can. I still just think they're a year away, Eric. I still think Oklahoma wins the game, and I think before it's over, they may have a late touchdown to pull ahead a little bit. So I'm going to say probably 27-17 Oklahoma. Would it shock me if FSU won the game? No. And frankly, for our state and what we do here, it would be a lot of fun to be able to see a full house there and to see them win. But at the same time, I just think that Oklahoma experience that they've got and that offense would be just too much.
Well, it should be a great atmosphere and electricity, and you will be there. Enjoy it. Have a fun trip to Tallahassee. Be safe. Good catching up with you, and we'll catch you again. Again, people can catch Brent Beaird here on ESPN 1080 Tuesdays on Tuck and O'Neill, and as well as on Lindy's.com. Brent, thanks.
Eric, always a pleasure, my friend. Take care.
You too, buddy. That's Brent Beaird, and I'm Eric Lopez. This has been an FSU preview of the FSU-Oklahoma game, a game you can tune into right here on ESPN 1080, Saturday night at 8 o'clock, here on ESPN 1080, The Team.